Hello friends, welcome to our new manga recap. Today we are going to show you the recap of Dragon Devouring Mage. So without any wasting time, let's start. At the beginning, we see a big castle and too much people are gathering around it. They are only speaking a single word, Raymond. And then a guard approaches, he checks a card of a person. Then he reads, Raymond? Isn't it the family name of the national founding patriots, Russell Raymond, the noble of the family? However, what on earth is with his appearance? And the guard, both in bold unison, speak, confirmed, you may enter. What's this? Do you know that person? Yes, the Raymond family, isn't it? The family that contributed to the country's founding. What? But seriously, what's up with its that attire? To think nobles would be in such a state, it turns out there isn't even much to the lineage of founding patriots. That's probably the case. White Tower is recruiting mercenaries. Would he be there for that? But not only commoners but nobles also are serving as mercenaries. As the Russell Raymond walks outside, a smirk plays on his lips, and on his mind, he thinks about acting beyond their places. And then he saw a big city having a tower in between. The city name is Camelot, and it is a capital. And then he walks toward the tower. Tower named Mage Tower, the place where the guardians of the kingdoms gather. And he thinks to himself, there were times when I struggled to prevent the downfall of the family. After his father passed away in the war with the empire, and he had no choice but to flee from the castle as if he was escaping. But in order to reclaim the territory, he had to enter the Mage Tower and accomplish. But he was also separated from his mother too. And he speak to himself, I can't my mother's still. And then he, a scene from his university shows, and it was a dream that it was impossible for him. But before even applying to Mage Tower, he had already been expelled from the academy. Russell Raymond, for the first time in the academy, a student have received failing grades 3 times in a row. No matter how outstanding are in theory, you couldn't even complete a level 2 circle. Many professor always do his insult and he was always downfall. And another professor said, it seems like you're overcoming your manner ordinary will be difficult. Why not try finding a different path instead of being a wizard? And the Russell think to himself, mana rod narrowing? And then, due to an inherently thin and weak mana rod, it can neither accept a certain amount of mana beyond a certain limit nor release it. This is truly the greatest punishment that heaven can bestow upon a wizard. And now, sitting in the castle, he think to himself, anyway during mercenary life, by a stroke of luck, I managed to achieve second circle, but and then he watches to his hand and smile. Anyway, I am still a third-rate mage. And then a door swung open and a man entered, and he declared, temporary job registration deadline for today has been ended. Please come again tomorrow. And the people start saying, huh? I waited for half a day. And then another person also say, even if it's a lean fair, what can we do? And the Russell, his composed demeanor is showing by the picture. And he said, beggars can't be choosers. And he heard a sentence from the other people. Those were saying, I heard museums are also hiring temporary mages. Should we be try there? Another person saying, what are you talking about? And then the Russell also think to go here. He think to himself, they're only looking for first circle guys. for cleaning. And then he sees the Mage Tower and he thinks to himself, we would should be embarrassing ourselves there then. And then he thinks to himself, he must go there. And then, reaching his hands to his pocket, he put out a gold coin pouch. And then he decided, I'll go. And then he standed towards the great museum, which is named Lavorium. Inside, a guide speaking to people, saying that our Lavorium is the biggest museum in the kingdom. And when he passed through the hallway of the Lavorium Museum, he says, especially this week, there is a visit from noble individuals for observation. And then he pointed toward the side ornaments and said, there should be no speck of dust. Russell think to himself that what should I do to get magic from this? And then when Russell followed that man, he said, please be careful while using wine magic for cleaning. If anything gets damaged because of your mistake, you better be prepared for consequences. And then he says that these all the instruments are placed may be fake. Russell think to himself, being a dramatic way. And then his eyes get pointed to a thing and he sees a big door and he gets shocked. This place looks familiar. Fantastical species room? And then the Russell watches in that and says, fantastical species? And then he get a vibration from his pocket. And when he put his hand in it, saying to himself, what is that vibration all of a sudden? And then he put out a dragon ring and he said, mother's ring? And then he decided to go there. But he see a big dragon skeleton in front of him. And then he senses a load of vibration. And he said to himself, the vibration is getting stronger. And he said to himself, do you want to say something? Please tell me, mother. And then he closes his eyes and the memories of the past get inside his brain when he used to visit that place with her mother. And at that time, he was enjoying that. And then his eyes pointed towards a thing. He pointed toward that. And at that darkness, his eyes wide and open at today's time. He see a heart named as Ancient Dragon's Heart. And then he sees to the ring placed in his hand, and he said to himself, a dragon's heart and a ring that resembles dragon eyes? Why are you crying? And then he pulled that ring into his finger. And why did you lead me here? He said to himself. And then suddenly the vibration gets stopped. And then he see the heart, ancient drag of the dragon, get glowing. And the Russell get totally shocked what to do now. And he think to himself, am I hallucinating now? And then in a complete chaos, black magic surged from the inside and lightning bolts of red color expanding from all directions, and the ring is the heart of the dragon. And another eye will open when he put that ring on, and he see a dragon. He saying, you are capable of becoming the cornerstone of a new legend. The sentence was said by the dragon, and the Russell was totally in shock. Another sentence appeared. For the sake of that legend, I grant you another chance. At that moment, Russell realized that the wheels that were turning the world have corrected, and the long-awaited fate, it was a beginning. The eyes of the divine Dragon King checking the information of the world, and the successor Russell Raymond status window and the emissions were also affected. And then the light disappeared, and in the night In the darkness, he was called again and again, Raymond, Raymond, Raymond. And then he think to himself, what is that noise? Sounds like someone is angry to me. But then he sees a professor in blurry eyes, and he think to himself, that who is it? And then a sudden flash of the book fired on his head, and he get a surging pain on his head, and then he get his eyes to the right side, and he watches two people laughing. He may be his class fellows, and he think to himself, what the hell is this? And then he clutched his head with both of his hands and thinking about the past. And he said that I'm back in the past now. He was embarrassed in the class. And then we see a scene from the outside of the window. And outside of the window, we see Russell and his professor, Professor Hubert, standing. And Russell think to himself, did I regress in that time? And then the Russell saw Studa, his professor, Hubert, and Hubert think to himself, although you are not behaving like yourself, you still have to face some consequences. He says these words by rubbing his two fingers on his forehead, and then he said, get out. Russell get out from the doors, and when he stepped outside, he think about time regression, a past picture of him get paid on his front side. The kind of magic? No. Can this truly be labeled as magic? He think to himself as new eyes of the dragon open once more. There will be no shortage of becoming the cornerstone of the new legend. For the sake of the dead legend, I grant you another chance. And then, in the present, Russell thinks to himself, at that time, his ring has disappeared. He mentioned another chance. And then the Professor Hubert entered. Was it my mother who helped? Russell right now also thinking about that. And then the Professor Hubert called him. Russell? Russell, bowing slightly, said, my apologies, sir. He think to himself, I fell asleep during my class unexpectedly. And then the Professor Hubert said, a brief consultation seems necessary, so please come to my office during lunchtime. Russell said, all right. And then he turned. Professor Hubert said, I'll be waiting then. Russell is still now bowing for respect for the Professor Hubert. And then the Russell put a slight smile on his lip and said, how long has it been since I got in trouble? Though it's alright. And then he watches the Professor Hubert from outside, from front side. And then a voice rang out from his behind. Hey! And then a boy smirking behind smashes on his head. And the Russell said to himself, who the heck is this bastard? And then when he get turned, and he see the senior boys smirking on him, and the middle one said, bastard. And then another boy, the fat one, get tries to attack on his backside by saying, this jerk. And when he trying to attack, his hand get caught by another student, and he said, the professor watching, you idiot. Surely I told you to take notes, he said by turning his face. Russell think to himself, Coma Frederick? And then his gaze sharpened. The blonde-haired boy said, if you don't want to die, come to the bathroom. And then they went away. Russell smirking, still trying to piece the things together, and said to himself, I remember this. And then a sudden notification appeared in front of him. He said to himself, what is it? And the mission is that Get rid of bullying. Show the three classmates who were bullying you a little less. No reward, just a taste. Russell think to himself, is it an illusion? He tried to merge his finger in the system, and then he think to himself, no, it's not. Hey, why aren't you coming? The brown boy said. The Russell eyes widened in disbelief. He said, in addition, there's no way running, since we are all in the academy anyway. And then he smirked. Are you scared? Russell is in full courage state, and he said, alright, mission and all, that's aside. Let's just, he said, the two boys laughing, and he is in full courage pose. And he think to himself, after years of mercenary life, he has fight relentlessly compared to the monsters he had fought back then. These three guys are on the cute level. They don't have a power to fight in back. And the blonde hair boy said, Bisquick, have you finally arrived? Russell said, oh, you are here, you empty-headed runt. And then they scoffed on his speaking. Has this kid finally gone crazy? And then the fat one guy tried to punch him, said, you are picking the wrong words. And then he tried to punch him, and the Russell get stepped away from the inside and punched him in the chest. And when he punched him, he burst out saliva from his mouth, and then his eye got wide, and he fell down. The other guy is totally shocked about this, and he said, this bastard, and then he tried to punch on his face, and he also get fell. And now the blonde hair guy said, sigh, how annoying is that? Can't use magic, so restore to learning low grade martial arts, he said to that boy by throwing his cigar on the right side. And the Russell him think to himself, truly living his life to the fallen lineage. And then he showed a mana covered weapon in the front of Russell. Magic is absolutely forbidden on campus, but using small artifact is allowed, didn't you know? He said by smirking, and then he rushes forward to punch him. Go to hell, you idiot! As when he was closing the distance, Russell grabbed the hand, and he was totally shocked. What had happened right now? Coma, Frederick. He started twitching his finger, curling him until he screamed aloud, and then he knelt on his knees, trying to figure out. And then he said, Russell, a jerk who gave up within his family, unable to compete against his brother, groveling when facing the strong and bullying the weak. Russell think to himself in this dark direction, how good. And then his eyes turned dragon-like, and he said, such a worthless scoundrel, dared to meddle with our family. The blonde-haired guy, clearly sweating, and then Russell clenched his fist, trying to punch him, said, hold on. And the boy said, wait, let me say something. And the Russell hand stopped at the urge of pushing him, and then he went away. From now on, leave yourself. And then a moment changed, and he see three guys lying on the floor as they have been beaten a lot. And Russell says to himself, if you don't want to get into trouble. And then he stepped forward, and then after fighting those boys, he get rested and tapping on the floor. And he think to himself, was I too embarrassed? And then he feel a sense of tiredness in him, and he says, My eyes are tired. And then a sudden notification appeared in front of him. Lowest grade mana stones edible, and then mana grade stones get in front of his hand. He sees them for a while, and then he said that edible mana stone, and then he think to himself, if it's edible, are you telling me to eat it? He's holding his stone. He think to himself, even barbarian warriors don't eat rocks. However, when he tried to push the stones in his mouth and he ate it, a notification appeared. You have consumed a low-grade magic stone. This might also be an opportunity, like time regression. And when he eats it, his body emerges and emits a mana from it. He gets choked. What is this? A mana cat sounds his body, and his notification appeared. Acquired magic power from the magic stone, and his body kept emitting mana from inside. He clenched his chest, closing his eyes, and he is in the extreme state of pain. And he thinks to himself, magic power from the magic stone is flowing out, and the notification appeared. Your mana in the circle is increasing, and it's being absorbed into the circle. His heart is surrounded by the ring of fire, and he clenches his hands around the heart, and he thinks to himself, thankfully it's stabilizing. And when he get into his previous states, it's clear with this method, and he smirks. His eyes are shining bright, and he thinks to himself, I can overcome the mana road narrowness and the downfall of the academy. He can overcome that, and he can also overcome the expulsion from the academy. Even his third rate mercenary, destiny and fate can be changed. And when he is walking from the front side, he entered in the Professor Hubert. He said, excuse me, and the Professor Hubert allowed him. Come in. He see the Professor Hubert sitting on the sofa and tell, please take a seat. Russell sit in the seat, and the Professor Hubert said, you seem different today, unlike your unusual stuff. Could it be something troubling you? Where there were rumors that your classmates were bullying you? Russell think to himself, Professor Hubert, someone I'm very grateful to who never gave up on me in my past life. Russell smirks, and he thinks to himself, I have always wanted to say this. He said, there's nothing to worry about. Professor Hubert got choked, and Russell said, thank you, Professor. And then the professor said, oh, well, it's the professor's duty to manage student, isn't it? Russell smirked. And then the professor added, anyway, since you dozed off during class, you should be punished. But it won't be easy. You need to complete an assignment from advanced section of elementary magic theory, special writing and analysis report on matches 62 to 74. Even the senior students find that part difficult. A notification appeared in front of Russell. Mission: complete Professor Hubert's assignment. Additional rewards will be given based on the completion of the assignment and Professor Hubert's satisfaction. Rewards are the basic magic stone. Russell's eyes blinked, and he think, is the assignment also considered a mission? Professor Hubert smirked. What? Is it too much of a task? Russell said, no. It will be grateful for the opportunity. And then he scene changes, and he's stretching in his table room, and he said to himself, the assignment isn't that difficult. In my previous life, in order to compensate for my desperate magical abilities, I studied theory endlessly. I didn't even put books down when I was a mercenary. However, in this life, there's something just as important as studying, manner of training. And then his training began. His walking, his feet get bump in the sand, pushing the stand upward. Mana road is the pathway through which the mana circulates. The mana observed through the breathing circulates along the mana route and accumulates in the heart. And he's running, and when he turned out, a monster is following him, and the reverse the process of the emission is magic. He pulled his hand toward the forward and used the first circle magic, fire, fire. The fire burst from his hand, burning the monster too much. In other words, the stronger the mana roll, the faster mana is accumulated and released. And then the monster is still there. He clenched his jaw, and now he is in terrible state. And then the monster is trying to lunge at him. However, he escaped from there and saying my mana rod is excessively thin and weak, and he cursed lunge into the wall and think to himself what to do next. Was it the heaven showing compassion for my wretched fate, or was it just a pure luck? And then around the pillars he's surrounded by the purple mana. He's trying to get up, and then he see in front of him a rune of unknown origin. He see within it two hidden magic books that are glowing in a blue ring. Russell is totally shocked. What is that? And after that mysterious scene, we see a book lying on the table, and a person is thinking to himself, I can't believe that he reached a conclusion with such depth, with such academy level study materials. He thinks to himself. And then we find the Russell standing in front of Professor Hubert. Professor Hubert say, are you sure you were the one who prepared this report? Russell now put a hand on his chest and knowing, yes, I can take a mana earth to guarantee it. Professor Hubert think to himself, a mana earth? Huh? He does look a bit too confident. And then the Russell Raymond think to himself, for someone saying that so frankly. And then Professor Hubert break the silence by saying, anyway, I'm very satisfied with your report. And then a glowing notification appeared. You have completed the mission. You will now receive the reward. Lowest grade mana stone. Additional gem of the same size. Increased understanding of the art of the summoning beast. Thanks to the increased understanding, the following result will come into effect. Increase in magical power, decrease in mana consumption, and reduced casting time. Russell thinks to himself, does that mean the higher my level of understanding, the stronger I become? In that case, his eyes totally widened, and he listened. Professor Hubert said, good work. You may take your leave now. Russell is now wanted to say something. He called Professor, but Professor is knowingly what the Russell is going to say. And Russell opened his mouth and have a favor to ask. And then we have a scene that Russell said, Professor Hubert now raising his hand and said, the student library should have enough books to suit your needs. And the Russell said, I have read all of those books. And now Professor Hubert's hands are trembling, and he asked, all of them? Russell said, yes. And then Professor Hubert put his hand on the table and said, oh, that's shocking. And he said, however, even if you are telling the truth, using the faculty library is a different issue. And he said, I will have to see if you are qualified for that. Russell said, with a knowing smirk on his face. His eyes all lit up, and he said, that's completely understandable, sir. And then flurry of mission notification came. Complete Professor Hubert's assignment. And after that assignment's notification, Russell stand now under the tree, and thinking to himself, who would have known he would give me so many assignments? And then he think again him to himself. But the better one's understanding of the theory, the stronger their magic. I need the advanced level knowledge from the quality library at all the costs. And then he opened the cap of a bottle and thinking to himself, it may a bit of a hassle. And then he tilted the bottle to his mouth. Since I can get a mana stone as a reward for the mission, it's two birds with one stone. And then a voice called from the behind. A shadow loomed behind him, and he called, Russell Raymond! And then we see a man with blonde hair. He said, my friend had to suffer because of you. He has hand in pocket and he said, Russell, I have a work. And he is Anton Frederick. Russell said, what's wrong? Are you here for revenge? And then the boy extended his hand. Me? Revenge? Stop deluding yourself. And purple shade come into the screen as he say mockingly, who would take revenge on a worthless piece of shit like you? Trampling your works just fine. Meanwhile, Russell met a gaze to him, and then, with a knowing smirk, he went away by saying, see you in class. And then he went away by saying, huh, weren't you going to trample him right now? The other boy said, and the boy said, you idiot, there's no audience. I have to show that to someone else. Russell think to himself, class? What sort of class it could be? And then his practical assignment began. He tried to make his assignment a practical major combat studies. He made his fire attack to complete his assignment. And this is a class that grades students based on their sparring matches with each other. And the class where I was always humiliated. And he was always bullied by the students. But he can't believe he had foolishly forgotten about it. And now, after that, all of the problems, he said to himself, I will have to be prepared for it. Now his eyes burning with determination. And then a notification appeared. Achieve second circle. Increase the level of understanding of the attributes you currently possesses. And then Russell began writing with his pen on the paper. He began finishing a lot of pages and he also did some physical practical assignment. And after completing all of them, now he stood in front of Professor Hubert. Now he's smiling. And then notification appeared. You have completed the mission. You will now receive the award. And now he went away, standing in front of his study table, closed his arm, and then after achieving his mana stone, they are now placed on the table. He thinks to himself, the mana stone is ready. And then he tried to pick one of them, and he thinks to himself, will my mana lord be able to handle the mana stone? And then a bead of sweat formed on his face, and then he closed his eyes, thinking to himself, I will just have to trust the training I have undergone for so long. And then he crunches all of the mana stone, eating them to his esophagus. And now he stands in front of his wall, and he gets a glowing mist around him. And then the red color explodes from his body, and his eyes got white. And he thinks to himself, my body feels like it's burning, and I need to make a path quickly. And I will have to mold the flow of the mana flowing around me. And he take his hand near his chest, where a purple flow formed behind. He grinning his teeth, said to himself, twirl it around and draw a new circle. If I fail here, his heart pounding with frequent beats, my heart won't be able to make it, he think to himself. And then many circles appeared, and Russell now think to himself, but I have already made up my mind. And then he break out his hand, and then he said to himself, no matter what, it will make it mine, and I would be totally transformed. And then we see a scene in which a light rushes from a window, and that is Russell's house. And Russell now opened his eyes and think to himself, I did it. I have made the mana flow into my body, and now I'm reached the second circle. And then the scene changes. Now we find Russell Raymond lying on the floor, and golden mana is surrounding his chest. And then a notification appeared. You have completed the mission. You will now receive the reward. And then another notification appeared. Your understanding of the fire attribute has been raised greater, and the power of your fire magic has risen greatly. And then we see a window open and the voice behind it. Amazing! I can't believe you have completed all of this task. And we find Professor Hubert, who had taken his hand between his fingers, and he said, okay, then the last question. And now his eyes sharpened, being a bit more fundamental than the previous questions. This question is closer to the truth. And then Russell Raymond here when the Professor Hubert said, among the four structures that magic is comprised of, which is the most important? Russell now is about to speak, and the professor said, ah, right. I'm asking a question that I only recently figured out to a student. Professor Hubert slammed his hand on the table and said, you have to tell me about the answer of this question. And Russell, his eyes brightened, and he said, the answer is the mental image, he said. And then the Professor Hubert clenched his fist, now saying, why? Why do you think that? Russell, now his eyes sharpened. He said, magic is the manifestation of something into the real world using the mana. The word categorizes this process into four levels. Assimilation, where you learn the principles of natural phenomena. Mental image, where you visualize what you have learned in the mind. And construction of the formulas in order to manifest the visual image. And the fourth one, manifestation, where the magic comes to exist in the real world through the formula. Understanding construction and manifestation can be learned through enough effort and study. However, mental image is not something that can be reached through effort. Breaking out of one's limit and reaching freedom of imagination to courage is what decides the level of mental images. And here is a flame that he has conjured in his palm. And he said, if I pretend this flame is an arrow, and Russell, now smiling, his eyes lit up, I'll become the second circle magic, fire arrow. If I imagine something else instead. And then he spread his hands with a fire dagger, now coming to the left side. It will then be something entirely different. And then we found trees branching, spreading all of that place. If I don't place limits on my mental visualization, then I would have to create something, something more great and something more amazing that doesn't exist in this world, something miraculous. And Professor Hubert thinking to himself, that's right, that's what he's saying is right. And then we find Russell, who had cornered a fire flame on his hand, like a shaded spot where the sunlight shines, and hot eyes. It begins from understanding the world, but ends with twisting the rules of the world. Now Russell is totally determined, clench his fist, smirking. This is what magic is. His eyes sharpen. This child is like I thought, Professor Hubert said. And then, with a smirk, he said, the student library is too small of a world for you. And then a notification appeared. You have completed a mission. Professor the library, first floor entry permission. Low grade mana stones, consumable, are given to you. And then we find a Russell Raymond going through the library streets, and he's thinking to himself, the first floor on its own is still so expensive. It's so different from the student library. Magic three-dimensional ballistic trajectory, intensive magic botany, he said while seeing four books. And then Russell grabbed one book, thinking to himself, it's practical. And then his eyes widened open, and also doesn't leave out the basic theories of the magic. And then a sudden appearance hit. A voice came from the behind and the Russell read through. You are reading quite the interesting books there. Russell's eyes widened. He is totally amazed at what could be. And then he turned his chair, totally in shock. And then the Russell said, what? And that voice said,
This way, child.
the person is Drea, Snow White Lady. Russell, now bowing, said, nice to meet you, Flame Tower Master. He said, I'm Russell Raymond. His eyes now sharpened, saying, she is in the realm of the eighth circle, which not many in the world have been able to reach. Despite being over the age of 80, she uses an incredible amount of mana to maintain her youthful appearance. The best ranking Mage Tower of the Red Tower faction. Drea Snow White, and she is the Flame Tower's master. The Lady Drea smirked, and she think to himself, but why is she here? And she said, with a knowing smirk, no need to be nervous. And then she presented him a lollipop. And then she said, I'm just a companion of yours who happens to be waking or walking the same path as you. And then the Raymond pointed the finger at him. From me? And then Royal Lady admits that it's for you. And then the Royal Lady turned and she said, but how did a student like you gain access for the professor's library? Russell said, Professor Hubert allowed me to. And then the Lady Drea smirked. That's uptight, man, did? Russell think to himself about the image forming in his mind about the Professor Hubert. And then the Lady Drea smirked. Makes some sense. You are learning something quite interesting. And then she said, extremely pure mana. Your mana distribution is very stable too. How rare is that mana? And then the Russell think to himself, did she notice something? And the Grey Lady was going beside him and said, don't worry, I am not here to lecture you or anything. And then Russell bowed, a bead of sweat forming on his face, and he said, thank you. And then we find a glowing mage forming with a stick is put down on the floor. Dry Lady said, well done. The Russell is trying. What is happening now? And she said, grow to the best of your abilities, child. And then she went away, and Russell's eyes glowing as having a sparkle in them. And then the flame tower master vanishes. After that, we find Russell standing in front of a door, and he said to himself, I didn't think I would meet you, but what an unexpected gain. And then a voice came from behind. Isn't that Russell? And we watches the student who were going the sideways and saying about the Russell Riemann. Why is he coming out from the professor's library? Who does he think he is? And then a previous figure stepped, a brown haired boy said, well, I guess he kissed some professor's ass. He's not gonna amount to anything anyway. And then he turned smirk. Try your best, though. Not that it's gonna do any good, he said with a teasing tone, having a smirk on his face and his eyes sharpened. And Russell, his eyes are brightening, and he smirked. And then we find a place where many students are gathered, and this is not an ordinary place. This is a real situation, magic battle studies. The first one to be named comes around the stadium ground and chooses the student to be his or her opponent. And we find two legs, and we say professor tends to choose the weakest student. It is so that the student can choose someone of their own level. We find Russell Raymond sitting there, and he had crossed his hands. He thinks to himself, in my past life, I was always the first one called. And hears student below there. They said, I bet it will be Russell this time too. Another student said, he has man of way narrowing. Of course he would be. Now Russell thinking to himself, he may choose a good flurry of attacks to kill his opponent. And then a voice came there. Quiet! I'll not pick a student. First is, and now students think they may be Russell. Anthony Frederick! And then the student gets shocked. Anthony Frederick? And then he steps down. Anton? Why Anton first? Student saying. And Anton passes from a person who had called him. And then Anton said, thank you, Professor. Professor said, this is nothing compared to the favors from the Frederick Merchant Association. Russell's eyes widened. He thinks to himself, I knew it. And then Antony slides, and he said, what are you sitting there for? Come down here, he said to Russell. Russell Raymond? And then Russell's eyes are totally widened, but he's still making a calm posture. And then we find Professor Hubert sitting in the lounge. He said, if you were coming, it would have been nice if you told me beforehand. Teacher, try a smirk. And she said, it's fine, it's not a big deal for a teacher to visit her student. She put a cup down and said, so you gave a child named Russell a professor used the library entry pass? Professor Hubert said, yes. Did that child make a mistake? Lady Dry smirked. No, it's just that I haven't seen something rare and precious like this in a while. Professor Hubert, making it clear on the downside, said, you are right. Russell's man of narrowing is an uncommon illness, even in the continent. You are a fool, Dwyer said. His eyes snapped open. Professor Hubert said, what? Dwyer smirked and said, the child overcame his own problem. Professor Hubert said, what do you mean? She, placing her cup on his lap, said, he's already made his second circle. Made second circle? Hubert scoffed. What could it be? What could it be? And then we watches a big stadium in which a row of people are standing. And then we see Russell, who is seeing on his notification panel. A notification appeared stating that mission win during magic training. Could rewards lowest grade magic stones. Compartment unlocked. Russell thinks to himself, compartment magic that only the wealthiest images he on use. It will be quite useful when storing magic stone. He inspects. And is your body frozen? The other boy with the golden hair said, if you still want to live, beg for me. His eyes now sharpened. Russell smirked. Huh? Beg? And then Russell get a fire around him. And then he said, me? Should I beg? And that boy is totally scared. That golden hair boy said, that magic, could it be? Back to your spot. I will start the march. The voice came from above. Russell is totally confident, but the brown haired boy has counted a light flame in his hand, and now he clenched his jaw and thinking, someone with the mana vein narrowing has a second circle. There's no way. Circle Mage 2 flamethrower. The brown haired boy summoned the flame, and flame is totally coming towards the Russell as he completely dodged it by making a purple colored shield. He has totally secured and by he has totally secured by the shield, and now his eyes is darted toward Dad. Above them we see a professor that is laughing. I don't believe that he made the shield thin and used the inclined side of it to protect himself from the heart wave. He claps. And the other professor, Russell Raymond, has he been hiding his skills? And we see the brown boy who's still struggling. Ah, you're enduring this? How? Damn it. And then his power get vanished. And then Russell's eyes started that it's the right moment now. And then he started his magical magic to fire arrow. His hand has catched that arrow, and now he lunged at arrow at brown haired boy. Brown haired boy is totally scared. Fire arrow? How he could block? He also made a thin shield and think to himself, does he actually achieve a second circle? That fire arrow reached to him, and he's totally scared. An insect, how he is doing that? And this makes totally sense. And then the Russell had his dagger on his hand, and he said, he already cast a second arrow. The golden boy think, and then Russell make his arrow to him by doing double casting. Above them, Professor said, double casting? The other professor said, I'm not sure. Russell is making double casting. His arrow is blazing, and it's more so that his casting speed is so fast that it seems like it. The other golden boy has made a shield in front of him. He's making a fire arrow all of you are capable of. Then there's a way. He made a shield to make his protected from the all of the fire. He activated protection from fire. Russell smirked. He thinks to himself, I have been waiting for this time. And the brown boy, still smirking, if I fight back after waiting for his mana to return now, then it's my victory. And then Russell make a strange glow on his hand by twisting his finger, and then he hurled a wind-like force toward that man. He said, what? How it could be? And then he used circle magic to wind arrow. The wind arrow reaches to him. You think he would identify the type of shield and modify his casting. Above those professors are totally shocked. Is that really the same Russell? The audience are totally gasping about the scene in front of them. Huh, the brown haired boy said. What it could be. He tried to make his step out of that, his face totally paled with sweat dripping out. And then the Russell suddenly came in front of him. His fist is clenched and he's going to punch him. Lightning, and then he struck his punch on his stomach, and then he spit out saliva from his mouth. And then Russell, his hands are trembling as he released another attack, and then he punched him again, and other professors are totally shocked. What kind of magic is that, and how is he using it? Stop this match immediately. What do you mean it's not magic? Professor Hubert said. Take a closer look at it. Look at what's covering Russell's body. And the other professor is totally shocked. That's he's using mana like a knight's aura. Professor Hubert said, I don't know how he got it, but he found a way. Russell made again another punch to the brown haired boy. And then we see Russell is still punching that boy. Russell has discovered a new way. And then after beating him a lot, he finds that boy lying on that floor, and the floor is totally crushed. Dust is flowing everywhere, and that boy is totally injured. The audience gasped and totally shocked at what had happened. The professor also think, how can this be happened? And then he said, what are you doing? And then we see Professor Hubert, who has raised his hand, saying, you should announce the winner now. It is totally obvious. And then the hand raised. He said, the winner is Russell Raymond. Russell, totally confident, raised his hand. And then the person came, saying, good job, you can go now. And Russell said, it's not over yet. What do you mean? According to the class rules, unless the victor surrenders, they should be allowed to call upon the next opponent. Next is you. Russell pointed towards upward, and notification appeared. Win the magic duel. Collect rewards. Lowest grade mana stone. There will be additional rewards in the case of consecutive win. Russell cried, come here, with a teasing smirk in his face. And then the scene cut shift to Professor Hubert's office. He said, 14 wins in a row. He's got a great insight. Russell is totally great. And now Professor Hubert thinking to himself, he only saw him once and noticed Russell's mana potential. Anyway, clearing his teacup, how did he grow that fast? He reminded the past events. Russell Raymond is totally great. And then a notification appeared in the Russell screen. You have completed the mission. Compartment has been unlocked as a reward. From now on, rewards will be automatically inputted into the compartment. You have received a reward which is totally unknown till now. Russell thinks to himself, the rewards are inside the compartment. Then he take his hand into it, and then he's totally shocked. This is a map. And then a mission notification appeared. Go to the location marked on the map and complete the mission assigned. There, when you approach the location, the lights will guide you the way. Clear words. Intermediate grade Banastone 10S warning. After reaching the third circle, you can do that. Russell is shocked. Cry after reaching third circle? How? The third circle. He had tried countless times before his regression, but he never managed to make it to that level. Will he be able to do this time? And also now, in a cartoonish way, he holds the map and saying himself, "Where is this place?" And then he went to the library. He tried to find the book. If I use the information from the professor's library, I might be able to find a clue. And then he opened a book in front of him. First is Indian Kingdom's outer territories. The next is the Empire's seaside. It's gotta be here, at least outer sea records, Russell said, with smirk forming on his face. Here, maybe here, but until unless he had made up stacking piles of the book, he's totally unsure that where it could be. No, none of the places matches up. He then make his hand in front of his head. Ah, damn it. Now he's thinking to himself, after getting out, I wasted too much time looking for the place on the map. And now Russell I started. Now I will focus on reaching third circle first. And then when he get out of the library, he said too many students. Now I started to him. They said, "Hey Hill, look, he is Russell Raymond. Last time we watched him." And then Russell I started. I managed to escape resentment and bullying now. But I'm still a loner. Russell Raymond, a voice called from behind. Russell Raymond. Professor Hubert came there. Will you come see me for a bit? Russell totally shocked. And Russell then, after thinking, said, "Ah, yes, all right." And then you see a golden sun in the sky, and a voice behind it. It's almost summer break. A man poured tea on the cup. Do you have any plans? Russell said, "Not yet." Then the professor said, "Then will you work with me on a research project?" Russell is totally confused. Huh? He said, "Depending on how you do, you could even have your name right after mine as the author. What do you think about it?" Russell now holding that paper. This is his eyes widen. And then the Professor Hubert breaks the silence. "Russell, what are you thinking about?" Russell said, I'm sorry, Professor. Actually, I do have plans for the summer." The Professor Hubert asked, "Bro, what? You just said you didn't have." Russell said, "I'm gonna go here." Professor Hubert said, "A vacation?" He holding the paper. He said, "Maldiva?" And then we find a scene where a carriage is going. And then the Russell watches outside. He closes his eyes, and then a smirk forming on his face. It's quite a distance. Should I eat something? Then he pulled his head in his inventory, and then he eats some mana stone and said, "This will fill my stomach quite a bit." And then the old man who is traveling the carriage said, "It's summer, but it's way too hot than before. How strange." But after eating the mana stone, Russell had granted his mana to the carriage, and it's reaching fast. Before reaching fast, Maldiva, Russell think to himself, "I will reach the third circle. How strange is that?" And then the scene cut shift to the Professor Hubert office, where he had placed a firm hand on his chin, thinking he's also going to Maldiva. Well, I guess it could be a good thing. And then scene cut shift to a beach where a glass is placed. And then he think, That Troya must be there. She must be in Maldiva right now, resting, and the mage forming in his mind.